Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to our Green Forest webinar. My name is Milena, and today we're going to talk about a very interesting tense in English language, which is past perfect. Many students are slightly afraid of this tense because that seems to be so complicated and it's very unclear how to use it and when to use it. Today we're going to discuss all the details about this tense, and I'm sure you will become a real expert. My beautiful assistant Nadia will help me today, and we will start sharing our presentation with you and start the discussion of grammar points. Let's begin. Okay, so past perfect. What is this unknown animal? Well, first of all, guys, we will need to have a look at our timeline to understand where we are in our time. If you look at the timeline, you normally distinguish between the present, the future, and of course the past. Today we will have a trip to the galaxy far, far away, to the past. Our next slide shows us this past zone. What happens in our past? Normally, different stories live in our past. And normally this story later you want to tell to your friends and relatives in a form of narration, which is a story. To tell a story, you would normally use such tenses as past simple, you already know it in details, and past continuous. But usually your story has origin, which is past perfect. That is the first, the earliest event out of many events. Let's look at one story and analyze it a little bit from grammar point of view. What a surprise! A strange story happened last week. A 33-year-old Norwegian came home from the pub and got into the bed next to his wife. But the woman woke up, screamed and jumped out of bed. "Who are you?" asked the woman. "You are not my wife," shouted the man. "Why?" "Because by mistake the man had gone into his neighbor's house." Had gone is the example of past perfect, and it shows you the beginning of the story, how all this story happened and why it happened, because he had gone into his neighbor's house. So, had gone as the example of past perfect shows us that it was the earliest event in this story. So past perfect, again I repeat, is the tense that describes the earliest event in the story. And it helps us to understand the chronological order of events in the past. What happened first and what happened next. Look at this example. When they got to the station, the train had already left, and you see this dramatic picture, people running after the leaving train. It is very clear what happened first. The train left, and what happened next. People arrived and said goodbye to their train. What is the structure of this tense? Let's look at the positive sentence. I had left. You had left. He, she, it had left. We had left. They had left. So we have a subject, a verb to have in the second form, which is had, and please pay attention because had is for all the persons, for I, for he, she, it, so you don't have a headache with changing to has or something like that. Plus past participle of the main verb, which is the third column of the verb in irregular verb, or ed ending for a regular verb. The structure of the question is the usual. The auxiliary verb had goes in front. Had you left? And the negative sentence. I had not left, or a contracted form, a short form. I hadn't left. Apostrophe T. Well, guys, Of course, because here we deal with the third form of the verbs for irregular verbs. It's very useful to remember the irregular verbs, especially before the test, right? So now you will give me the three forms. And look at me, I'm very angry and will punish you if you don't know your verbs. Cut, cost, hit, set, put. Cut. And I hope your answer was correct. What gives us cost? Cost. Hit. Set. Put. Bingo, guys, you were right. All the three forms are the same. Let's look at the next set of irregular verbs. Ring, sing, swim, run. Ring, rang. Now guess the rest of them. Sing, sang. Swim, swam. Run, ran. Very good. Let's move on to the next one. Teach, edge, bring, fight, buy, think. Let's guess what are the forms for those verbs. Teach, taught. Catch, caught. Please pay attention to the pronunciation. Never say touch and coach. The correct pronunciation is taught and caught. The same for the next. Bring, brought. Fight, fought. Buy, bought. Think, thought. Very nice, guys. Great students. Let's move on. Keep, sleep, send, spend, lend. Keep, kept. Sleep, slept. Send, sent. Spend, spent. Lend. Well, guys, thank you so much for this practice, and I hope it was useful for you. Anyway, never forget to revise your irregular verbs. And as you can see, I gave you a very good example of how to learn them. You will just take the table of irregular verbs and try to put them into different categories according to how they sound, and it will be easy to remember them by heart. So, the next point, which words can be used with past perfect? Or how do I identify them? What are the markers of past perfect? Well, you can use many of the same words of present perfect, such as since, for, already, just. To show the first action out of two actions, which is past perfect, you can use the words such as when, after, before, as soon as, because. To show the time before which the action happened, you can use expressions beginning with by. For example, by 5:30, by the time we arrived. And finally, when to use this past perfect. If I want to decide what tense to use, of course, you don't choose between will or is going to or is. When you want to show that one action finished first before another one started, which means that normally to use past perfect, you will need two actions in the past, and you will need to identify which happened first and which happened next. It means you don't want to use past perfect itself, out of nothing, out of context. Now, guys, there is a little task for you. You will need to complete the sentence with the correct past perfect form of the verbs. Here are the verbs, and please pay attention. Some of them are irregular, so you will need to remember the third form. For example, he asked why I hadn't finished the reports. Now I will project you the rest of the sentences, and you will need to choose one of the verbs and put it in past perfect form. Sometimes you will need negative. Okay, guys, we're back to the studio. I hope you have made your choices. And now let's check the answers. So, there was no coffee, obviously, because Mark hadn't bought any. Glenn knew he had made a lot of mistakes on his English exam last week. I phoned about the car sale, but the owner had already sold it. What a pity. Unlucky coincidence. The children were very hungry because they hadn't had any breakfast. I was sure I had forgotten the keys on the table, but they were not there. Diana was sure she had met Tom before. The children hadn't traveled by plane before, so they were really excited. My teacher was angry because most of the students hadn't done their homework. In many cases, that is our situation. And finally, Dynamo's manager left his job because the team hadn't won any matches that season. Actually, I wonder why he hadn't committed a suicide. Let's move on, guys. So, we have already said that past perfect normally indicates the earliest of several actions in the past. So normally it goes hand in hand with past simple, with the action which happens next. So what to choose, past simple or past perfect in a story, in a situation? Well, guys, you need to remember, if you want to show just a series of events that happened one after another one almost immediately, you choose past simple. Look at this example. I came home and went to bed, one after another one almost immediately. But if you want to show that one action finished before another one started, choose past perfect for the first and past simple for the second. Look at this one. When I came home, Everybody had gone to bed. It means that I met nobody, so I could go to the kitchen and open the fridge and eat alone. Nobody stopped me. Now, guys, your job is to complete these sentences with past simple and past perfect for each of the situations that you can see in the pictures. For example, look at this picture. It's a typical December situation. She be cold because she not take warm clothes. Hmm? You were right, guys. She was cold because she hadn't taken warm clothes. Let's analyze the next one. And yes, you were right. The printer didn't work because he hadn't turned it on. Look at this old lady and the policeman. Bingo. When she got on the train, she understood that she had lost her ticket. What a pity, what an unlucky coincidence for this forgetful man. Because when he opened his wardrobe, he realized that he had forgotten his swimsuit at home. And yes, you're right, guys. They were really afraid because they had never flown before. It was probably their grandchild who had given them a voucher to Egypt. Well, guys, another important question is what to choose? Present perfect or past perfect? Because by this time in your education process, you probably have a salad in your head out of all the tenses. Oh, present perfect, past perfect. Our teacher told us that present perfect is a little bit like past, but past perfect is also past. So what to choose? Well, guys, again, our timeline helps us. First of all, we need to understand what are we talking about. We're describing our present life or we are telling a story about our past. Present perfect is called present for a reason. Even though it has its origin in the past, present perfect tells us about present results of your past experience or action, which is your present life. It's your present. But past perfect belongs to the past, belongs to the furthest corner of the past. We can say that it's the beginning of grammar evolution. Past perfect does not have any connection to present, and it indicates you the earliest of two or several past events. It is your history. It is not your present. Now let's look at some sentences and try to choose the correct ending for them. Look, I felt scared because I had never flown before, or I have never flown before. Make your choice. Yes, you were right. I felt scared because I had never flown before. I'm telling you not about my present experience, but I'm just telling you a story of my past, maybe of my childhood, who knows. How is Susan? I don't know. I haven't seen her for ages. Or I hadn't seen her for ages. Make your choice. Yes. I don't know. I haven't seen her for ages. I'm telling you about my present experience and my present life. There is no Susan in my life. The country was in shock because the president has died or because the president had died. Make your choice. You are absolutely right. The country was in shock because the president had died. Here we are talking just about a very unfortunate fact of the history of the country that is not the present experience. Well, guys, this is the end. I'm back to the studio. And here I am again. Guys, I hope this presentation and my exercises were useful for you. And now your life became much more easier with past perfect tense. Anyway, I wanted to tell you that tenses in English language are not so scary and not so difficult. They are in reality very logical and easy to explain. And with the help of different tenses, you don't have headache or you don't break your brain in reality. You create a very nice and beautiful narration, beautiful stories with a lot of events, a lot of progress, and a lot of volume. It becomes a 3D story in reality instead of 1D or 2D story. I wish you a lot of success in learning a language, and don't lose your motivation, don't lose your energy. Have a nice day, and if you have any questions, well, my assistant Nadia tells me there are no questions, which means the information was clear for you. I wish you a nice day and study English. Don't forget about it. Goodbye.